It's August in 2009. My mother had a Nintendo Wii in the living room where she would play the new Super Mario Bros. She had this terrible habit of pausing the game and changing the input back to TV, only to forget that the Wii was running with a disc spinning and spinning inside, probably generating enough heat for the entire winter. One of my closest friends would come over every day to hang out and game. He would tell me about this new game that came out for the Wii called Monster Hunter Tri. He raved about Monster Hunter and got me ultra hype on the series. I can carry a giant sword made out of the jaw of a dragon and wear the skin of my enemies. I could pet a fucking pig in pajamas? Monster Hunter Tri was the first Monster Hunter game I ever played. I bought the game, put on a pair of oven mitts, stole my mother's Nintendo Wii, and played Monster Hunter Tri for the rest of the summer non-stop, losing sleep, never looking for a job, and experiencing the worst underwater combat I have ever experienced in my life. They never brought this back, and I can't imagine why. Once I got my fill of Tri, the same friend got me interested in playing the game that came before it, Monster Hunter Freedom Unite, on the PSP. If you used an app on the PSP called Ad Hoc Party, you could play in online parties with people all around the world. This was awesome for a little handheld at the time. There are people on this planet who love Monster Hunter and have no idea the majesty of Ad Hoc Party, but I digress. That isn't why we're here today. I'm not here to just complain about Monster Hunter Wilds, and I need to put this out there that I very much enjoy Monster Hunter Wilds. I'm going to be peppering things I love and have some concerns with throughout. I also preface this that this is very centered around the first 20 or less hours fighting low-rank monsters during its compelling, but in my opinion, drawn-out story. High rank may feel different, but here goes nothing. The combat in Wilds is by far the best we've ever had. The controls are incredibly responsive, and there's finally a button you can use to bring up Focus Mode. Focus Mode allows you to not only miss those giant swings in case you were scooted in one direction, but allows you to redirect those hits. This is something that drove me crazy constantly in other games, especially in World, where if I was using Sword and Shield and the monster was on top of me, I may not be pulling off that backstep leap attack in the right direction. Side note, that Wilds introduces a ton of accessibility options, and I love this. This is great. But this option where it shows me my character's outline underneath of a monster or behind them, I found incredibly distracting, so I turned it off and I never went back. Along with Focus Mode, we had the wounds mechanic. This was introduced, letting you pull off a one-button press that, more often than not, trips the monster and allows you to get free hits. On the surface, this sounds great, but when you're playing in a full squad for some of these SOS calls I joined for some extra parts during the story, it would end so quickly because we could just stun-lock the poor bastard back to back. I personally think wounds should appear less frequently and allow the focus strikes to do slightly more damage, or at least have severely diminishing returns. Sure, this may be more of a thing with low rank, but think about how new players come into this game, shoot off an SOS flare for players to come in, and it makes the hunt end in less than 3 minutes. This sort of thing was always possible if you're in high rank gear and you're looking for low rank SOS flares in the past, because you could just go in there and nearly one-shot a monster that some new player is fighting, but I find the wound system makes this even more of a cakewalk. Now, perhaps I thought, is this game easy? Or am I just a veteran of Monster Hunter now? I'm going to say a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B. Not only that, but there are many posts online about how people were not carded even once. I was only carded once because I didn't upgrade my armor like a good boy, so that was simply my fault. However, besides not failing a hunt, I didn't get stunned even one time. I fell asleep once because I walked through sleep spores like a smooth-brained ape. But I also never bounced my weapon off of a monster due to a lack of sharpness. And that's the other thing, the sharpness does not go down as fast as the other titles. The monster runs away from you more often in Wilds, and it allows you to sharpen your weapons and drink potions on the back of your chocobo. Sorry, your chocobo. Your chocobo. Your secret. Your mount autopilots you everywhere, essentially removing any part of wonder to this game's open world vibe, so it's incredibly easy to just fix yourself up much more regularly. I didn't feel like there was any point in this story, campaign or low rank, that served as a skill check. Think back to World. You're cruising while the monsters are taking a bruising, and then you get to fight Anjanath for the very first time, and you get blasted into the Shadow Realm. That is, unless you played World during the Iceborne era, which it gives you the easy mode armor right from the jump. But us launch day hunters didn't expect to be melted the way we did the first time the majority of us fought this red-skinned pickle. The only time where I felt a little pressure is the moment you're stuck fighting multiple large monsters at once and it's screaming at you to use a dung pod from your supply bag that it doesn't stop reminding you even though that you had already used the dung pods from your supply bag. This fight f***ing sucked, and the monster sucks. Therefore, by Monster Hunter's logic, the weapons are going to look really cool, and that's just how you get punished anyway. Moving on. This story in Monster Hunter Wilds is actually very interesting. They really lay out some base lore surrounding the Hunters Guild, why they do what they do, establishing the members of a unit and their roles, and has a classic hero's journey arc for one of its main characters, Nata. Nata is a boy that was attacked and separated from his family in the beginning of the game, and our heroes find him and help him locate his family, all while discovering who he really is and why the events that occurred happened in the first place. It is a good story. It isn't a great story, but it's a good story. I've seen a lot of people drag this kid through the mud because at times he acts like a brat, and honestly, if you're you're a parent, this isn't anything that you aren't used to. Every single person alive watching this video right now has had obscure outbursts without thinking anything through. Kids of Nata's age have brains that are not fully cooked yet, and they will have a hard time sifting through their emotions, especially after recent traumatic events. I find him to be absolutely fine, and Nata has enough character development throughout its story that makes it nowhere near as bad as playing 100 hours of Monster Hunter World, questing with the handler and her constantly needing rescue from danger because of her acting without thinking. The problem with the story is that while I understand that they have made low rank a little easier during the story and more accessible, I would say it's maybe a 70-30 ratio of dialogue to combat. Many occasions, after 20 minutes of cutscenes and conversations, you get plenty of context, only for it to be followed up by more dialogue going over the plan again, and then riding slowly to the point where you don't even need to put your hand on the controller. The story pacing, in my opinion, was all over the place, and the fact that they crammed all of this in low rank may be great for most people. The stakes, though, were never that high. Every monster was executed with swift violence, sometimes in less time than the cutscene that came before it. High rank has some little tidbits of story brought in, and I've only done a small handful of high rank missions. I'd be happy to do a second video at some point of my feelings about endgame in the future, but for now, we're here to piss our pants and subscribe to my channel if you're enjoying the content. I will also make sure I say that I like every character, except Werner, because he's literally unlikable and just a dick for no reason at all. It's like they needed an unlikable character on a checklist, and this is who they came up with. I felt Alma and Gemma were mostly useless. I don't hate them, but for characters that sure like to talk a lot, they spend a whole lot of time in the story doing absolutely nothing. I think Wilds would have had a much more interesting story having Nata as the only character that you spent most of your time with, besides your Palico. Perhaps I've been spoiled by games that have that parental unit plus raising child trope like God of War or The Last of Us, but I feel Nata's entire journey would have been much more impactful had we been able to build that relationship with him with our own character, instead of our character just sort of being there as a bodyguard. I love story games. I have an obnoxious amount of time playing Final Fantasy games and other major RPGs like The Witcher or Mass Effect, where dialogue makes up more than half of the gameplay. Perhaps I long for the days back in Freedom Unite when the guild would say, "Help! Help! A Tigrex is eating our babies!" and your character would just go, and give a thumbs up. You return with its head, hands, and balls to the village where everyone would cheer you on and then give you meat. I just feel like the story pacing in Wilds drags on for too long. Every cutscene overstays its welcome and feeds you a lot of information you already knew. And it's like someone trying to explain to you how to solve a math problem that you've already solved. And now it's time for a hot take. I liked Monster Hunter World's story more than Wilds. Spoiler alerts, I would skip about a minute if you're very concerned, but the final monster in Wilds appears after absolutely zero build-up or suspense. We don't even know what it looks like before we awaken it and eat its ass. Credits rolled right after I murdered it, and I don't understand why or how I was supposed to care that we had to kill that thing. In World, the island was a place where monsters go to die, and a giant building-sized dragon was feeding off of that energy, thus it must be eradicated. We knew why we were going to the confluence of fates. Perhaps you paid attention in Wilds better than I did, but the overall existence of Zoshia was just big dragon boy encased in crystal that feeds off of wyvern's milk. Could they have come up with any other name that wasn't as uncomfortable as saying wyvern milk? TLDW, I felt the overall buildup of Worlds was much more satisfying by the time the credits rolled, for the second time. Some of the monsters in Wilds I don't even remember that I fought, and I'm going back looking through this footage from my streams, and one of them was this thing. The monsters in World were much more memorable. I think a lot of people would probably agree with me, and it's okay if you don't. The main reason it's okay to me is because at the end of the day, I still love this game. There is no doubt in my mind that we're going to get a ton of content and updates and reasons to keep on grinding. High rank is where Monster Hunter really shines. The story is all behind us now, and if you're like me and didn't poop sock the game already sitting at Hunter rank 130, we still have plenty to go. There are a ton of items, armors, and weapons to get. 100%ing Monster Hunter is another personal challenge people like to overcome. We finally have a new Monster Hunter game. So of course, a lot of the people that love the franchise and want to see the game succeed as much as the one that came before it are going to be hypercritical and sometimes very annoying when things happen that we don't like. Capcom knows what they're doing with Monster Hunter. Things will be patched and reworked as they usually are, and it's not like the game will be released only to be abandoned. It's not Dragon's Dogma 2. Thanks for watching. Links are in the description. Leave me the appropriate thumb if you liked or disliked. Subscribe to me if you want to see more Monster Hunter and other gaming content where I talk about games I love. I'll be hanging out in the comments as usual because I love the discussion. Have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you in the next video.